Hey, hello again, YouTube and viewers. Uh, we've been given a nice opportunity this evening to have a nice little chat with an old friend of mine, friend, mentor, somebody who's been in my life for a long time. And this afternoon, he's blessed us with his talent. I'm talking about my friend here, Larry Lealock, and we will have the opportunity to see some clips of his guitar playing that will be on the channel right around the time of this video. But this afternoon, we just want to sit and chat and kind of record some of the things that we routinely discuss as time goes by, from probably a male Caribbean perspective, things that we believe there are forums lacking where people would love to engage and help them to kind of settle themselves and calibrate how they feel about their place in society and what society is doing to us and what we are doing to society. So yeah, let's shoot off the conversation. I might ask Larry, what are some of the key general areas?
Yeah, I think that if you're taking a temperature reading now, there is a feeling of hopelessness.
Right.
You have to address that. But the way to address that is that when you finish addressing, people must feel a bit relieved. And they must feel that they could carry on for another day or another month or another year. So.
Right.
One of the things that we would have learned, but I guess that learning does go at certain depths, because there's certain learning that could wash off with a hose, and some learning that you had to press out of you. Some you have to turn, you have to invert it for it to pour out, is that you just be tempted to be concerned about what another person doing. But the universe smiles at that, because what another person doing is exactly what that person is doing.
Right.
It has nothing to do with anything else. That person is exercising some kind of sovereign power, individuality. Our estimation of it as being absurd is beside the point. It is beside the point. What is real is that it's still one heart, one brain, two lungs.
Right.
What happened is that, like in electronics, like with speakers, they have something called impedance matching. But what is impedance matching? If I take a hammer and I do it through the air, so the hammer will go through the air without achieving much. But if I take a big screen and do it so the screen will move plenty air. So what happens is that when a person is not effective as an individual, they look for methods to move plenty people, because they could be like a hammer, but the hammer don't do much. You could just hit a little spot. But if you could broaden the hammer now, take the hammer and press it into a sheet of steel, and very thin, and do so it will move plenty air. So what we just be talking about is not really the power of an individual.
Right.
It is the individual matching the impedance to the environment, so that their force could be transferred to a large area. Now, because of the fact that this is an energy-driven planet, you don't ever ask for energy to stop, because that will be going against the nature of the existence.
Right.
What you just have to do is you just have to raise your energy higher than that, which means that you're in step and in kind with the universe. And then you have to do your impedance matching, which is to find a way of getting yourself to spread. Like in Trinidad, for example, we have a unique situation where the people are very strong in what they feel. regardless of whether they thought deeply about it or not. They feel very strongly about it. So what you just find is that even if you could tell somebody what to do, they will not listen to you because they feel very strongly about that. So what you will find now is that in other countries, a man will just say something to people and they will do it. But in Trinidad, people just strips plenty. And when people just strips plenty, it means they just think about something and then find when you're talking is stupidness. Right? Because of that propensity, you just find that group activity in Trinidad is a labored thing.
Yeah.
It is a labored thing. But it can be seen as a separate experiment from the one across the pond, where people form groups easily.
Right.
And they follow a single person easy. Right? Let me give you an example. In your area where you have union activity, when you have to campaign for elections, you do your very best to get people, and they will promise you and then they don't show up to do anything. Right, because that is how we are here. In those countries, when the people say they're showing up, if they find you doing nothing, they will call it ask you a meeting, turn off, or it no longer. So you have two different mindsets. So it doesn't make sense wondering how that could happen there.
Right.
When it has been set up socially as the type of experiment, wherein one human being can go and control large numbers of human beings. You can even get one person here to follow you. This is not a matter of you're tempted to complain, but as you start to complain, just stop and think about it. It's not the same experiment. Mm-hmm. It is not the same experiment at all, at all. The coordinates different, the data points different, the inflections different, everything different. So that we now trying to get 5 people to do what is done by millions there,
right,
is the same level of effort. Probably even more. Just 5 people. And I suppose that it's hard to accept that because of the need to find some kind of equity. But you can't have equity if it's a separate experiment. It was never designed to be the same experiment. If the experiment was done here, right? Then think about hundreds of millions of people who don't follow nobody. That's chaos at a level that it's better 1 point something million people cause trouble than hundreds of millions causing trouble. Yeah. So they could do this type of experiment with a small number of people. And now, let me switch now to another country, which is China. China's experiment was first based on our model, which is plenty industrialization, how we have all the LNG and the refinement. That is their model.
right,
But they learn that you have to have too many different types of people, too many philosophies. You just end up with the classic irresistible force versus the immovable object. With plenty energy being expended but nothing taking place. So, much to the dismay of the international population community, they started getting rid of people in dissenting views.
right,
And they don't care, because this is the way monarchies have always been run. Before, they used to cut off people's head and burn them at stake. Now they're just getting rid of it. But the whole point is that when you have people of with a certain amount of conformity in points of view, it might have varied, but it's not wide. You could get a lot done of a certain type of activity.
right,
For example, in industrialization, you don't need a whole set of people talking about things like festivities, like carnival, and things like that. But you want them to talk about we are on the finishing stages of the dam. So for that, millions of people have to be on board for a project like that. And because they have managed, and it will be a separate discussion to find out if socially that experiment was successful. That's a separate argument. We're just talking about the need to streamline views so that they could get ahead in a certain way. I mean, when you have major philosophers, modern philosophers saying right now, and you have Elon Musk frightened, and he said China pulling away. When he made this speech, he wasn't happy. They're pulling away. They're pulling away at a rate that it almost immeasurable. Right? There's another experiment. This experiment is when our people decide to move. And remember when we were having the discussion on how they sat down and said, well, we're going to get rid of the monarchy and carry on as some kind of socialist thing. And they thought long and hard about it, of course. And then they say, well, they're going to do it. And once they got rid of the monarchy, well, we're not sure how deep that is, but let me just say, for argument's sake, that it will be so in all the media that they get rid of the monarchy. It might have a shadow monarchy that we're not being told about, or a monarchy in exile, or something. But once they got rid of that, they could do their industrial programs. The Colin program to get dissenters out. But that program has accelerated more since Mao Zedong, so in 1949. They didn't call before. That Colin came when you couldn't afford at that delicate point in time, coming from the war with Japan and things. You couldn't have people who disloyal to you. So it would have been the first disloyalty they would have fought against, would have been disloyalty in war. And then even when the war finished, the concept of not allowing traitors would continue. And then even when there was not treachery, there will be points of view that is not in concordance. So now you have to streamline the points of view, because if you push in against me, and I push in against you with the same force, we are winning. So when they look at their population of 1 something billion, you cannot have that kind of dissenting at that level, that kind of force. Once again, you could say a separate discussion about it. But let's deal with just like if we're dealing with science. So they streamline the points of view and they set up an industrialization and technological